So I don't do a whole lot of bourbon videos, partly because the rest of YouTube is just saturated with them, and a lot of folks are doing these kinds of videos better than I can. The other reason is just that about 3/4 of the category doesn't really interest me that much. However, I was prompted to put together this video you're watching now, the pot still video, due to this thing. This is a little sample. I still haven't bought a full bottle of this, but I will. This is the bourbon whiskey from Sonoma Distilling. I did not expect to like this as much as I did. It's there's no age statement. It isn't even marked straight. So they could have thrown this in a barrel for a week and I wouldn't know about it. Mash bill isn't particularly notable, but I loved it. I loved the sort of orange marmalade meets, tea leaves character of this, which was so totally off the map as far as modern style bourbons go. And then I started sort of thinking, what's doing this? What is the magic? What's the special sauce here? And the thing you cannot fail to notice, don't even know you can read this, is it says double pot distilled right on the side in very small print. So I had a little theory. Even if a lot of bourbons, and even a lot of craft bourbons don't excite me all that much, maybe a sign of quality would be that they're being pot distilled. So what I've done is I've lined up 3 pot distilled bourbons, and we're going to taste through them and review them. So the first one is from Balcones. This has been reviewed like everywhere. Everyone's done a video on this, so I'm not the first to the party by any means. This has not had as much attention. This is Leopold Brothers 5-year-old bottled in Bond bourbon. Oh, difference in color. Wow. And we've got a barrel pick by Binny's of the Union Horse Distilling Reserve Straight Bourbon Whiskey. We'll get more into the details of these as I got to them. Also pot distilled. All right, so it is a very hot day, but I've been leaving these bottles in the air conditioning, so hopefully the alcohol won't be thrown off too much by the aggression of this hot, sweltering day in Chicago. All right, so pot distillation. Why does it matter? Maybe not necessarily as much as you'd think. There's a picture out there that pot stills bad, or column stills bad, pot stills good. Column stills clean, nice, but slightly boring distillate. Pot stills, much earthier, but potentially much rougher distillate. And it's not necessarily true. If you go to the west of France, for example, you will find people with traditional column stills, so that the short ones, right, the ones that really aren't any higher than this room, and they're making Armagnac, Calvados, Mar, traditional brandies, coming off the still at 50% alcohol. It's so still remaining very, very close to the distillate. It's just a different way of distilling than, on the other hand, if you're using a column still that is, 3 columns tall, and if you stack them up on top of each other, they would make a small skyscraper. That's just a different scale of column. It's a different kind of distillation, even if it's still fractional distillation. And on the other hand, if you could be pot distilling something, but if you're not direct firing the still, if you're indirectly heating it, if you're filtering your wash a lot to get all the solids out before you put whatever it is in there, if you're using all the tricks from Ireland or Glenmorangie or all those folks, you can make an extremely clean distillate that's coming off a pot still. So it's not necessarily there's a lot of gray here. What I would tell you if you see a bourbon, for example, that's pot distilled, it tells you, I would say, less about the nature of the distillate than the nature of the distillers. Put it this way: if you're starting a craft distillery, at some point along the line, someone has, if you're planning on using a pot still, someone has come up to you and said, well, hey, why not just use one of these, some kind of hybrid setup? not necessarily a hybrid still, which is a particular kind of still, but some kind of more flexible hybrid setup. You put one of those in, and hey, you can make vodka, and you can sell vodka on the side while you're waiting for your whiskey or whatever to mature. You can make neutral spirits to sort of infuse for gins or aquavit or whatever the hell you want to make. And you can have a much wider product range you don't need a pot still. Pot stills are a pain in the butt. The fact that the owners, the leadership, said no, we want the pain in the ass, the extra inefficiency, the extra work of having a pot still. That they were, some combination of crazy enough and principled enough and rich enough to make that call to say no, we're not going to make vodka. I mean, you can make vodka on a pot still. It's just a pain in the ass. That they said that tells you something about them and about what they wanted to make. They wanted to go through the trouble. So what we got lined up here is, I have no idea the details of how they're making this. Each of these are making this stuff. But what I can tell you is just because they're using a pot still, they had the intention to make something with more character. Let's put it that way. Even if it doesn't necessarily come off in the distillate. All right. Enough of my babbling. Let's actually get dug into these. So what I'm going to do is taste these totally neat, nose and taste them. And then we're going to add some water and go through them one more time. Proof down a little bit and open up a little bit. So let's start with the Balcones. Texas pot still straight bourbon. Straight, so it has to be at least 2 years old. If you're curious, this is batch number, God, what is this? TP, either S or 5, 820-5, dated 10/14/20, so last year. This has, they're not giving the exact numbers on the mash bill, but it's a 4-grain mash. You got blue corn, you got rye, wheat, and malt, and it is bottled it's made in Waco, pot distilled, and bottled at 46% alcohol. And it smells like Balcones. Balcones has this, whatever I'm drinking from them has a signature that I feel like I could pick out of a blind pretty easily. It's something like, take some oak chips, not bad oak chips, not like cheap wine oak chips, like nice oak chips you made yourself. And then you're going to saute them with some butter. You're going to throw some balsamic vinegar in there. You're going to top it off with like some pipe tobacco, mixed pipe tobacco. So it's really oak and tobacco and balsamico kinds of notes. Maybe throw some cherries in there on this one. Like a candy dessert cherry, but like a real dessert cherry, so not like fakey sweetie. And throw in like a piece of leather into your little saute pan too. It's a nice nose. You can tell there's a hell of a lot of oak on this. I doubt they're using full-size barrels. It's smaller ones, but it works. It really does work. Coffee. There's like African coffee, maybe like Kenya AA, that kind of thing. So aromatic, has a little tanginess, tartness to it. Cinnamon sticks, allspice, black pepper. Even a spritz of lime in there. Throw a little, squirt a little lime in. So alongside the tobacco, there's also a little bit of tea notes. There's a sort of black tea that you've sort of left on the kitchen table for a day, and you kind of smell it, that kind of thing. And molasses, actually. Not blackstrap. We're talking lighter molasses, baking molasses. And just kind of a nice coffee cake kind of characteristic. This does not smell like a traditional bourbon at all. This is its own thing. It's exactly what you'd expect from Balcones doing a bourbon if you're sort of already familiar with their style. So, the traditional modern bourbon fans, the BTAC fans, may not be into this. It's much more distillate forward, much more. The aromatics feel much more driven by the grains than just by being slapped in the face with a whole lot of oak. Even though this has been slapped in the face with a whole lot of oak. On the palate, ooh, big boy. Big, aggressive, kind of burly. This is not shy. This is not smooth. Okay, so vanilla, obviously. You know, the oak chippy thing. Various tobaccos again. So we're staying in the Balcones stable. Cinnamon stick again, very very heavily. A little bit of clove too. Oh, and there's that lime zest note and that sort of Kenyan coffee note. Black tea. Leather, but it's not. It's like whole old books than leather. So you're getting the paper in there, the old paper along with the leather, and then and then on the back end it's just this big old attack of wood tannins, and it's kind of nice. This is very dry, and I can roll with that. I'm enjoying that. Yeah, a little kirsch, a little pencil shavings actually. Very dry on the back end. A little slightly medicinal. There's some cardamom in here too. You know, not smooth. Let's start there. A little bit tough, but likable. Once you get over the fact that this is not your standard modern style bourbon, this is extremely well made, and I like this a lot. So I'm gonna give it a squirt of water, and we'll come back to it. All right, second up is an effort from Leopold Brothers in Colorado. These guys are now sort of very well known in the craft distilling community. They've got a huge still collection. They have their own malting floor. They've made this crazy 3-chamber still thing which they're using to make an extortionately expensive rye, which I still really want to try. This one was, let's see. There's batch information on this somewhere. Barreled in summer 2015. And again, this is a 5-year-old, bottled in bond, so 55% alcohol. The mash bill in this is 21% malted barley, which again they malt themselves, 15% rye, and 64% corn. So they're dialing up the malted barley on this pretty high. You don't. Most of the time in bourbons, you see barley there just to kind of get fermentation going, unless you want to use enzymes. This time they're really trying to bring it out as a particular flavor component. Let's see, open fermented. They're using a combination of I guess pitched yeast and wild fermentation. So that's kind of cool. And of course, it's pot distilled. All of this sounds very cool. Interesting. Okay. So it's actually kind of muted on the nose right now. Tons of dried grass, which is, in some ways, this reminds me of maybe Irish. No. Let me back that up. More like almost Bladnoch. You know, the low sort of southwest lowlands distillery. This is this. Not a whole lot coming out, but in some ways this reminds, you know how in the Avengers movies, you know, Hawkeye got his family sort of Thanos snapped, and then the next time we see him, he's like chopping guys up on the street. You know, he had a rough couple of years. This is like Bladnoch had a rough couple of years, and it's a little angrier. It's a little more raw, but I like it. Dried grass. Some candy corn in there, but like rustic candy corn. Like if you're, homemade, wild west kind of candy corn. Some tea, maybe some Lipton's tea. It's very fermentary. There's some like if you were to fermenting some rye sourdough or something. This is kind of what that smells like. And a little bit of like a lemon zest thing. Okay, it's opening up a little bit. It's still pretty quiet. Old leaves. What is that? Something peanutty, but like almost like a peanut cookie thing. Still kind of muted. Let's give it a try on the palate. Oh. Very complex. Super complex, actually. Okay, back up what I said about Bladnock and Hawkeye and all that. Let's try a different metaphor. Imagine mathematical space. You're going to draw a line. The starting point of the line is going to be like Maker's Mark. You're going to draw a line going away from Maker's Mark. That line is going to go through Wild Turkey and then just keep on going for a long. So we're moving away from Maker's Mark. We're also moving away from Wild Turkey. We're trying to get more extreme than that. This is kind of where, you know, that this lands somewhere on that line. It's kind of doing, you know, the kind of brutal distillate-driven thing, the cologne thing that Turkey is doing, but more. Dry, grassy, still candy corny, Lipton Sea thing. But that, I mean, that lemon note really just explodes into this orchestra of, not huge, like a chamber orchestra, small orchestra, of like citrus, zest, citrus pith, green notes, grapefruit, orange, kimchi, like pickled onions. Ooh, that's good. Difficult, but good. Like set some Brussels sprouts on fire. Oh man. Old cologne, like old man cologne. I also get that note in Turkey 101. This is kind of like, we're going nuts with that note though. Old books again, but really old paperbacks this time, like stuff, you know, crap that was printed in the 40s, and you're just kind of stuff that in your mouth. Citronella candles, weirdly. And a big old dose of cayenne pepper. Yeah. Jesus. This is, how do I put this? This does not come across as sort of settled and balanced to me. This is a very nervous whiskey, but I'm actually kind of super into this. This is a lot of fun. It is tough. It's actually far tougher than Balcones, so I kind of regret all of my tough talking about that. This is harder. This Leopold's is harder. All right, let's give this a couple squirts as well, and we'll come back to it. That is a hell of a distillate. I mean, this is 5 years old. This is the oldest thing here, and it still feels like it needs another 2, 3, 5 years to really get settled in and buckle down. All right, moving on to the Union Horse. Sorry, my notes are kind of all over the place down here, so if you see me glancing around, that's what's going on. Ooh. All right, so this is from Kansas. This is a single barrel pick done by not Binny's, Bourbon Women Chicago. And it is let's see, barrel number 1345, bottled, barreled March 3rd, 2016, bottled February 27th, 2020. So almost 4 years old, just short of 4 years old. And the mash bill on this is 80% corn, 20% rye. So there's no barley going into this. They're using enzymes to ferment the thing. And the strength is, so I've tried to arrange these going up, you know, ascending in strength. This is 58.46%. And this is bottle number 7 of this batch, if you were worried about that. On the nose, this definitely smells like the most traditional modern bourbon-y. You got brown sugar, tons of brown sugar, a little bit of cherry, like more wild cherry with like the pits in there. but it's also very floral. And I think that's one of the things that I get a lot in pot distilled spirits is the floral aspect. Also cream soda, root beer, wintergreen. There's a lot of oak on this. Southern sweet tea. Some kind of cake, like a pineapple upside down cake. Little orange zest. So citrus is becoming a theme with these guys. I don't want to knock this over. Some porridge. Take your cream of wheat, but then throw some cinnamon and like cardamom and clove and in there. Some campfire ash, some old attic smells. Tons of black pepper too, going along with the campfire ash thing. And then just throw a dollop of like tree sap in there. Again, this is an aspect of the woodiness. I imagine that this was not full-size barrels. This must have been, considerably smaller than that on the palate. Black pepper all over the place. It's in my nostrils, is in my sinuses, it's all over my mouth. I feel like I just ate one of those pepper grinders. And I'm kind of enjoying it. Ooh, Jesus. Peppery, but also floral at the same time. And very confected. So, you're taking a dessert bakery and you're going to dump black pepper and flowers all over it. That's kind of the personality of this. Ooh. Black pepper, wood tannin, tons of wood tannins in the back end. Wintergreen, cinnamon, clove, lots of clove. I feel like my tongue might be numbed out by this. Flowers, dried flowers. That orange zest note is right there again. A little bit of an English or Balkan pipe tobacco blend. So you're, pipe tobacco, but there's some Latakia in there, a little smokiness going on. Not peat, like smoked tobacco smokiness. Like the rest of these, a little bit brutal. Not as brutal as the Leopolds. But we'll put it this. No, let me back up on that. It is probably just as brutal in its own way. It's just brutal in the way that modern bourbons are brutal, in that sort of aggressive woodiness to it. Porridge, that sort of tea note again. Oh, Jesus. Face numbing with the tannins and the black pepper. This needs a couple squirts of water. It's funny, but this is interesting because it comes across to me as by far the most traditional modern bourbon of these three. But you can still tell, like, that floral note and the slight citrusy note and the leafiness kind of gives away that this is something a little bit different still. Hold on, let me check to see if that's enough water. That's why, by the way, how you have to add water. Just add what you think is right. Try it. If you need a little more, you just add it. I'm gonna give it another squirt. All right, let's go back through these again. All these are monsters. Let me lead with that. All right, going back to the Balcones with a squirt of water in it. It actually loosens up quite a bit. Sweetens up too. So the what is that? The balsamic vinegar / lime note has kind of gone crazy a little bit, But there's also now emerging a kind of Mexican hot chocolate note to this. There's definitely like you took some of the spiced, dark chocolate and threw it in with some milk. That's going on. Coffee cake still, the coffee still. Oaky cherries. It just smells, more Balcones than it did before. I mean, this one is not. If you tried Balcones before and you haven't liked it, this is not going to convert you. I am rather enjoying it though. Yeah, the vinegar note is crazy. It's that sort of it's not sort of classic balsamico. It's that sweeter, like oakier stuff you tend to get from like California and a couple of other places in the U.S. That stuff. On the palate, okay. Whoa. Well, first of all, let me note that this comes across a little bit short on the finish. It's a little bit clipped, and from two directions. On the one hand, like it stops really short in my mouth. That's kind of how I can tell that spirit is really young. Everything is happening up front. It's like a couple of teeth in front of my molars. It just ends, and I'm not getting really anything anymore. But it also just doesn't quite hang on with as much as I was expecting it to from the initial contact. Let me try this one more time. I shouldn't have led with that though, because actually, if you can get past this slightly, just a hair bit disappointing finish. This is like a B+ finish when you're expecting like an A. So not a hair bit disappointing, but not too much. It's okay. Once you're past this, this actually comes together beautifully with water. It sort of integrates itself. The tea notes and the fruity notes kind of wrap into each other beautifully. There's a graininess to this coming out a little bit now. The hot chocolate thing is there. Tobacco too. The coffee thing. Oh. This is quite nice. This is a really nice sipper. And at $30, I think this is priced in most places around $30. This is actually a little bit of a bargain. Again, do not expect standard bourbon. This is this Balcones style, and it's much more driven by the distillate and the particular, idiom of that distillery. So do not expect a bottle of Buffalo Trace when you're buying this. On the other hand, if you're able to sort of get past that, this is really excellent. Again, I would recommend, even if you don't, proof it down too much, a drop of water seems to bring this together in a nice way. I like this a lot. I would give this 84 out of 100, which puts it on par with a lot of bourbons in the price range, and really the top bourbons in the price range, honestly. Is it as good as, my beloved Old Granddad 114? No, I would take that instead. But this is terrific, and if you've never had a pot distilled bourbon before and you want to check that off your bucket list, this is a great inexpensive option. 84 out of 100. All right, moving back to the Leopolds. All right, remember, this is the one which seemed the most hairy to me on first contact, so I'm curious. And the nose was pretty muted, so let's see what happens with a little water. Okay, with water, gets way more explosive and aromatic. It's almost like you took a bunch of dried grass, like a big clump of dried grass, and like candied it, like cooked it with rock candy. But also just like some crap you dug off a forest floor. So like, dirt and dried leaves and twigs, and this is very earthy, very, dirt driven. And then there's that cologne note again, which again reminds me of Turkey 101, but it's just more extreme this time. Sorry, that's my computer getting mad at me. birch beer, some like orange bitters, don't ask me which kind of orange bitters, but I'm kind of getting that more so than the orange peel this time. Yeah, this is a very serious. It's wild. It's brutal. The distillate is not settled down at all. This, I mean, in a way, this reminds me of like a young Longrow or something. The distillate is just bonkers. It hasn't totally been, tamed yet at all. But it still works somehow. Even if it can't quite get out of its own way, even if it's just making lots of trouble, it still is just a ton of fun. On the palate, jalapeno takes over, actually, of all things. Jesus. Like, yeah, hot peppers. A little black pepper in there, too, but mostly black jalapeno. Oh. Some cane syrup. And then you got this sort of grassy, cloney citrus thing going on. Really difficult. Oh, Jesus Christ. Really difficult, kind of magnificent. This is you throw the, in its current state, this might be one of the best old-fashioned bourbons I can imagine having on hand. The rawness of it, the directness, the edgy, nervous qualities to this. This reminds me of like a young high-end champagne or something, like a vintage bubbly that's meant to, go to sleep for a decade, and you're just gonna drink it the moment it hits the shelves, that kind of thing. It's just beating you over the head and saying, hey, don't drink me yet. But the quality is there. And especially if you want to use this for high-end cocktails, this will do wonders. Jesus. So how do I review? Okay, this is a really, really tough one to review because on the one hand, it's doing a lot. You remember like all the stuff we used to make fun of craft bourbons for like 10 years ago? It's doing a lot of that, but the level of elevation at which this is working is so much higher that I still kind of like it and would still recommend it. This is raw and brutal and still just really good. Give this stuff another 5 years in barrel and it'll rule the world. Right now, it's a fighter. It's gonna fight with you. But I haven't done this in a while. But as far as rating, I'm gonna go 85 plus question mark. I'm gonna stick the question mark on here because I can imagine a lot of people trying this more than Balcones, more than the Union Horse. And it's not to say that those aren't divisive either, but this one in particular, I could see a lot of people rating this in the 70s. And I get it. I totally get it. But I think the quality is high enough that I'm going to give it an 85 plus and just tack that question mark on there at the end as a clear warning. Know what you're getting into with this. This is like owning a husky. It's a terrific dog. It's going to fight you. You're going to have to do battle with this. Yeah, 8 years old, 10 years old, no question. Go out and buy this. It's gonna whoop everything. Right now, it's still there's still that question mark there. All right, moving on. Back to the Union Horse. With water, the wood comes out even more, and this was not, the wood was not unexpressive when I was having it neat. In the back, though, the flowers and the sort of herbaceousness is still there too. This is very peppery. It's very floral. It's very woody. But you still got that slightly, confectionery, bakery with cupcakes and muffins and things going on there too. Honestly, having just added water to this, I feel like this is just a little bit. This is a gorgeous distillate. I can tell, it's very well made, but there's just too much oak on it too quickly. Yeah, it's just kind of like swamping and muting out the other characters too much. On the palate, ooh, okay, better than it was neat. More. Ooh, still very peppery. Still a mouthful of pepper. But you're also getting some s'mores, some marshmallows, graham crackers, and the chocolatey notes. Some porridge again. That's kind of a common note today. More black pepper, wood tannins, black tea all day. Floral notes, dried wildflowers, cinnamon, cardamom, clove. Yeah, Latakia tobacco, like serious like smoked tobacco. And then more tea tannins, more black pepper and more tea. Of all these, like I feel like the traditional bourbon drinkers would probably get into this one the most. Like this is the one Fred Minnick's gonna go for, if any of these, because like the wood component is just so forward and obnoxious. In some ways, this reminds me of that. What was it, the Journeyman Corsets, Whips, and Whiskey or whatever. Their wheat whiskey, the cast strength wheat whiskey, and this is also feels like, you know, a fairly, you know, young whiskey that was just put in a cask that was very small and got a hell of a strong dose of wood in a short period of time. I think I like this a hair more because I like the distillate more. But I'm going to give it the same kind of score. I'm going to give this like an 83 plus out of 100. So my feeling with this is something like, I like this. I don't think it's presenting its best form today. I feel like the small barrel, the aggressive, quick oak isn't playing well with the distillate that well here. And I wouldn't ask for necessarily just the same amount of time in a larger barrel, but something, maybe this blended with, you know, something, you know, the same thing aged in a larger barrel would work great. It just needs to, we need to untighten the wood a little bit. I still like it, 83 plus. Yeah, just not quite as much than the others. And for the price they're asking retail, probably not as good a value either. I mean, the winner on value is this guy, the Balcones. I mean, $30, it's terrific. Go buy it. This Leopold's is the real question mark to me. Like, I have not seen that many reviews on this yet. I went out and bought spent a little bit more money on the one that had the extra year of aging on it, and I do not regret that. I think this needs time. The owners knew what they were doing. They were making a beast of a distillate, and the price they have to pay for that this just needs time to come around. Right now, it has a certain brutal magnificence, and man, is this going to work well in spirit-forward cocktails. But I mean, the sipping power of this is not going to come around for a few more years. Keep an eye on this. This is one of the more interesting and thought-provoking bourbons I have had in a long time. Anyways, that's what I got. Pot-Distilled bourbons. Thank you for watching. This is 84 for the Balcones, 83 plus for the Union Horse, and 85 plus question mark for the Leopold Brothers Bottled and Bond. And that's what I got. Thanks for watching again, and cheers.